current role is building a business called the Refirement Network. She helps baby boomers, those born between 1946 and 1964, to understand the opportunities and challenges associated with their retirement. Lynda, thank you for joining us. Now, you've been involved with numerous business activities over the past 32 years, and your latest baby is the Refirement Network. Can you tell us a little about the business and your role within it?
Right. Thanks so much. Yes, for me, this is my latest passion. I have been privileged in being able to follow mostly my passion in the world of work, and I think having that as my background helps me in this phase, because Refirement Network is about helping the baby boomer generation that are heading towards the next life stage, what that used to be called retirement, but I believe retirement should be a word that is retired, because the world is changing at such a rate that the prediction and the trends is that baby boomers will never retire like previous generations. So I'm a retirement coach, or a retirement transition coach, in helping the 45 to 65-year-olds understand that the world is changing and helping them to start planning that next phase.
Now, you just mentioned the baby boomers. Why did you feel it was necessary to focus on this core generational group as such?
I think for me, firstly, because I am a baby boomer myself, that was of personal interest. But secondly, this is the first generation that is being affected differently. So it is a future trend. It's not something that was there before. And I am interested in future trends. And so in working with a wonderful group of people that I did in one of my previous businesses, Tomorrow Today, Dr. Graham Codrington, who is a generational expert. I worked closely with him, and it was actually him who suggested that this would be something on the radar. And as I was part of the team, that maybe this should be the area that I start researching, and it became a new passion for me.
Now, they always talk about the generation gap. Now, how does the baby boomers differ to, say, let's say, the generations X and Y?
Right. Just a sort of a step on generational theory is that much of who we are is formed in the first 10 years of life. And so for baby boomers born after World War II, from 1946 to 1964, we grew up in a period in the history of the world, not just in South Africa, where it was a can-do generation, putting man on the moon, the era of rock and roll. And so many baby boomers have this attitude that I can do anything, and as they've moved through life, have changed things. The second thing is, the reason they're called the baby boomers is that they were born after World War II, when all the men got back from the war, and before contraception and the pill. Or should I say, not contraception, but the pill. And so they were a huge generation that were born in that era. And so they have redefined life in every life stage as they've moved through it. In the United States, for instance, there are 78 million baby boomers, where there are only 32 million X generation to follow. So they are a very, very big generation, and that in itself has caused change.
Now, you've clearly stated how unique they are in the mix of things, but in your approach to assisting your clients who comes from the generation, how do you handle them as opposed to the other ones?
I'm purposely focusing mainly just on the baby boomer generation, because I'm focusing on the next life stage called retirement, and so this is the group that's heading that way. I don't believe that X and the Y generation will be affected in a similar way, because the X and the Y have grown up in the technology change era. And so for them, having 8 jobs before they are 35 will be normal. Whereas for boomers, many of them had 1 job from 20 to 60. And so that's one of the clear differences as to why this generation may need a little bit of help and guidance from a coaching point of view.
Now, you mentioned that the baby boomers are heading to retirement stage, and statistically it's in the next 5 or 10 years. But we know times have changed and that people have become more reluctant to retire at age 65. Is this any different for the baby boomers?
For me, that's one of the exciting parts, is that firstly, they're probably going to have a good 10 to 15 years of healthy living that other previous generations didn't have. And so the question to ask people in this age group is, what do you plan to do with this phase? And for many, they say to me they want to play golf 7 days a week. And part of the training of being a coach is that once golf becomes the daily routine, it becomes the rut. And so having purpose and meaning in your life, and a combination of passions. So it can be a portfolio of some work, some volunteer work, Many will not be able to retire due to our history. There are many that haven't saved enough. There hasn't been a social security system in our country. We are also the most divorced generation, so many have lost half of their savings through a divorce. Second marriages, will have children until they're 70. These are all some of the trends that are affecting this group. And so many don't have the choice to retire, and so need to find something that will sustain them from a financial point of view. Those that have enough money will still need to find areas of interest that will get them up every day so that they have a sense of purpose and meaning.
Right, you touched on the fact that obviously experts agree that South Africans simply can't afford to retire at 65. Where do you think the problem lies, and what should South Africans be doing from an early age to make sure that they can retire comfortably and financially sound at, let's say, 65?
The rule is that we should be saving 10 to 15% at least of our salary from our very first salary check right until the last one. And that is a discipline that sadly many of us lack. And up until now, if you have left one company, you often have used that money to buy a new car or to go on a holiday rather than preserving it in a preservation fund. And so at this stage, that is my advice to anybody, is try to save at least 15% from your first salary check in some kind of investment vehicle, and to continue to do so and be disciplined enough not to spend that, because you're going to be needing it for many, many more years to come. The challenge is that for X and Ys, that they are easily possibly going to live to 90 and 100. And so they're going to need more money for a much longer period of time.